Hello, and welcome to the third and final part of our guide to the origin creator. Last time we used conditions to expand our origin, the pig, to greater reflect its source material, and start to give it some unique advantages. This included restricting food to fruits and vegetables, while giving the pig the capacity to pick up other mobs and find more gold while mining. For this last guide, we will create our last series of powers, which will take the pig from a docile farm animal with some static bonuses and utility to a diverse and adaptable origin. Now, I did not specify it last time, but I did also add integration for servers to the mount power. That way, so long as you hold a saddle and the toggleable power is active, another player can climb on your back. This uses the same setup as the power for mobs, except it uses the power action on being used, with the buy entity action mount and target action exhaust. So what exactly will be our last main power? The ability to turn into a piglin. And the question is, what changes do we expect to see in this transformation? And perhaps more importantly, what checks and balances are in place to keep it reasonable? Now, according to the Minecraft wiki, a zombified piglin is an undead, neutral mob which becomes aggressive when struck. They have a total of 20 health and 2 natural armor. They almost exclusively use golden swords and are considered undead mobs, and also are completely immune to lava and fire. This transformation will vastly change our origin in this state, meaning we will need to find a way to limit them either within the form, or how long they can remain within the form itself. For now though, we will focus on just creating the effects. We will start once again with the least specific power, making the Piglin Form truly undead. After some research, the undead mob type is described by a number of characteristics, including reversing the effects of instant health and damage potions, being immune to the effects of drowning as well as poison damage, and taking more damage from weapons with the Smite enchantment. These traits would take several files to generate by hand. However, the Origins creator has kindly given us the power entity group, which allows you to define your entity, or should I say origin, as being undead. These potion effects are most easily recreated, and drowning can also be easily tested, which means that the first part of our Piglin Form is now complete. Our next step will be creating what is arguably the most powerful part of this form, complete immunity to all fire damage. Seeing as I didn't say it before, each of these powers will be built with the condition that the Piglin Form power be active. Now, this power was also simple. A power called Fire Immunity achieves the desired effect. What about the effects of health? Well, seeing as 20 is the same level as a standard player, and our health is currently half of that, it makes sense to return to our passive power. We can add a new condition to this file, an inverted condition, so it is only active when our Piglin Form is inactive. This way, when our Piglin Form is active, our health is no longer modified, and we return to the default value of 20. The armor effect can be achieved with the Modify Attributes power, something we have experience with, so I will not explain it too thoroughly. However, I will attach the link to the wiki with all the available attributes. In this case, we will use the generic armor attribute and simply add to its base value 2, which is the equivalent of the piglins. Now we're going to address the issue of the fact that piglins almost exclusively use golden weapons. In the last episode of the guide, I said that conditions could be used to increase the damage type of specific weapons with the Modify Damage Dealt power. Using a buy entity condition with the actor condition of an equipped golden sword, you can specify for this power to only affect that item. But how much of a bonus is reasonable? In-game, golden swords are only capable of dealing 4 base damage without enchantments. And I didn't have any insight, until I looked again at the wiki, which says specifically the amount of damage a zombified piglin is capable of. It is entirely dependent on the difficulty of the game, but on easy mode it does 5 damage, and on normal they're capable of doing 8. I leaned towards the weaker of the two and determined that increasing the damage by 2 points would result in a reasonable increase, making a gold sword as effective as an iron sword, or 6 damage. I'd like to consider a potential disadvantage for the pig. In mythology, pigs are associated with gluttony and greed, and in the Origins mod itself, there's another creature with a secondary form, the Phantom, that becomes more hungry in their secondary form. So, I intend to add this to the pig, so that in its Piglin form, it becomes more hungry because it thematically makes sense and it gives us a very approachable weakness in that form. So we're going to create a file called Hunger within the Piglin folder and use a power called Exhaust. This power causes you to become more hungry based on exhaustion values. Some of these standard values can be found on the Minecraft wiki and in their associated actions within the game itself. I elected to make the exhaustion value 0.2, which is the equivalent of sprint jumping, so that's a base value that we can test and then later on increase if need be. This exhaustion value will be applied over an interval of in-game ticks, with the default equivalent to 1 second of time, which seemed like a reasonable value. Let's also quickly go in and apply the same conditions we used on the passive power to the damage power, because I forgot to do that earlier, and it's necessary to make sure that the power is functioning appropriately. We just created many powers in a short space of time, so let's quickly test if these are functioning appropriately. First, the health and armor functions, which work when we switch between each form and are working as intended. We can also test the damage, which shows that outside of Piglin Form, Gold Sword takes many hits, but while in Piglin Form, it only takes 4, meaning both the damage and Gold Sword effects have taken place. Lastly, Fire Immunity, which we can see is also working as intended. With the Piglin power complete, there's one last main power I want to create, which is to simulate one of the most interesting traits of the pig in vanilla Minecraft. The fact that a pig struck by lightning turns into a zombified piglin. So what effects do we want the lightning power to create? I don't want it to be the source of the Piglin form, so let's instead use it as a buff for the player with this power. We will change the effects of a lightning strike to make the player stronger. Using the power action when damage taken, we can specify a damage condition with the type Origin's name. There's a list of these damage types, and 2 of them are relevant, Lightning Bolt and Lightning Bolt Player. We want to accommodate both, so we will use the OR function. Finally, we can use the entity action, as we've done in the past, to apply a potion effect to us, something like Strength. Now we have all of our powers that we generated in the first guide made fully functional. So is our origin completed? The answer is yes, and no. At this stage we have all the functions down and many extra features to make the origin more immersive or just more interesting. But you will inevitably not have thought of everything, and that's okay. You'll figure out better ways to code your origin over time, like I had to do with the health of this origin. So now it's time to go test your origin. Play a world with it, see how it feels, what stands out as useful or cumbersome, what you'd like to see changed. Maybe you'd like to see more challenge or a sense of accomplishment. You can add a condition to a power based on achievements you get in-game. For instance, I thought the Piglin form was something people would want to work towards, so I made it unlocked after the advancement you received upon first entering the Nether. I also realized that it was more difficult to tell whether I was in the Piglin form than I wanted it to be, so I added an overlay. This can be done with the overlay power and the Minecraft nausea texture. I made it red and very weak so it was apparent but not obtrusive. Little adjustments like this are how you're going to bring your origin from something functional and still cool to something that's actually worth publishing and making it available to other people. And something where if you're on a server, you could present to the admin and say, hey, can I use this? Since we are talking about these changes, I'll list a couple that I definitely am going to change before making the pig available to anyone, and some that interest me but I am not sure of. Most of my doubts and changes come from the last powers I make, which makes sense because they have the highest impact on the origin, therefore they are the easiest to upset the balance with. So let's start with something small, something like the golden swords. I want them to deal extra damage regardless of the form you're in, especially since the Piglin form is restricted until you enter the Nether. I also want to increase the damage a little bit, likely by just 1 to ensure it remains useful and on par with iron. My next issues come with lightning. Initially I built it around the Piglin form, but upon reflection I don't think that matches the source material. After all, the pig turns into the Piglin, not the other way around. So I want it to benefit the pig more. My thought is to increase the cooldown substantially, to something like once per Minecraft day, which is somewhere close to 20 minutes, and to make it only benefit the pig with some powerful effects like that of a golden apple, fire resistance, absorption, resistance. Because lightning does a total of 5 damage, which is half of the pig's total health, which feels like a fair trade to get some really nice buffs, especially if you use a trident purposefully to achieve it. Rewarding clever play is always a really big bonus in this sort of thing. Lastly, I want to amend the Piglin form to be more taxing. Currently, you get a lot of benefits for very little drawback. I want the Piglin form to be kind of like an ability in an RPG, a relatively short buff for when you need to do combat in game. So increasing the hunger cost and maybe every minute applying a stacking hunger debuff to eventually force people out of the mode. This would also match more thematically, but I'll get to that when I talk about the origins we have made. Now, speaking of thematics, there's actually only one additional thought I had, which is a potential change I would make, but I probably won't because I don't want to upset the careful balance here. When I referred to good luck in my first guide, I showed an XP bottle, because I thought of increasing XP gain as a way of demonstrating that luck for the pig. Now, this would have synergized really well with the gold theme that we have going here, because gold enchants better, and anything that you can link using that sort of connection makes your origin a lot more well thought out and a lot more interesting, which is what we'll talk about at the very end of this guide. Either way, I didn't want to upset the careful balance, but my initial thought was something like a 5% bonus to XP from all sources. Nevertheless, our origin is complete, so let's quickly look over each power, its determining use, theme, and balancing. The passive power. You get low HP and low damage to match. This correlates with the pig, and it also serves to justify the Piglin power. The speed boost is also a nice added bonus, which helps make the pig feel alive and a lot more fleshed out and immersive. Next, we'll deal with the forager power, which limits the food that the pig can have access to and begins our theme of gold throughout. You're left with golden carrots and apples as your main and best food sources. This then connects to the fortune power, which adds in combination the bonus apples you're receiving and the bonus gold you receive to further inoculate yourself and increase that constant amount of food and healing. Gluttony and greed, oh boy, the themes of our pig. Next, we're going to add the mount power. This ability isn't as thematic as the others. The ability to pick up mobs doesn't match any particular theme of myth. However, it does match the pig, and it does offer a really nice utility advantage. Next, we're going to deal with the Piglin. The Piglin form brings in many aspects of the pig, as well as themes of gluttony and, again, the relationship with gold. Changes made to hunger keep this form from being a static buff, and instead make it a semi-costly power one can use to adapt to a circumstance in which case they're burning or need to fight some other mobs. Lightning ties the origin together by using the last pig mechanic available, and returning once again to the theme of regeneration that seems to run through most of these powers. I can only imagine the villager and piglin trading potential this origin poses. Enjoy your regeneration golden-fueled rise to success. It's been a real pleasure. Give this origin a shot. If I manage to get it posted, I probably will, but all the same. And give me some ideas if it needs balancing. In my mind, I'm actually thinking that maybe the second episode is a bit more balanced, but I wanted to show how far you could push things. All the same. Last thing, if there's an origin that you want to create, make it, please, and then show me it. I would love to see your ideas. If there's really good ones, I'll show them here. Or if you give me an idea, I'll probably work on it and give you my thoughts on the matter, if that is something you'd be interested in. If these guides are helpful, if you enjoyed it and want to see more, please like and subscribe. Always appreciated. I need a nap now because it's like 1 o'clock and I've been working on this for like 3 weeks straight. So, yeah, have a good one. All right, I'm done here.